Assalamualaikum and a very good day, everyone. Welcome to today's webinar, and we are back with another important topic, especially for businesses in tech. Today, we are going deep on intellectual property laws, or also known as IP laws, and how it impacts how you do your business in today's world. I'm Nabil Jalil, and I'll be your host for today. We'll be discussing some of the major impacts of IP laws and how you can get your business and ideas protected in this space. So joining me today is Professor Rusmawati from Universiti Putra Malaysia, UPM, and also Miss Roslyn from Meranti. Hi, welcome.
Morning.
Hopefully we're going to have a very good discussion together, all right? So without further ado, Professor Rusmawati, I would like to invite you, if you could share your experiences, your background, and your thoughts as well in this topic for today. After you.
Thank you so much, Nabil. Okay, so I'm Rusmawati from Universiti Putra Malaysia. Actually, that I'm currently holding a position as a Deputy Director in managing IP, which is we help all the academia when they want to file their IP. And I think that we already know about the definitions of the IP, right, Nabil? Which is
Yes.
IP is actually that is property rights that are legal protections in various forms, which is actually that when we say it's about the IP, normally that most of the people sometimes they will think about the patent, the copyright, the trademarks, the ID, industrial design, for example. That are actually all the types of IP, but why we have different types of IP, Nabil? Of course, that they have a different functions and then different purpose of why actually that we protect our property or our innovations. For example, if Nabil always heard about my IPO,
Yeah.
That's towards Meranti. That I think that's Meranti is a part of the IP as well. So that is examples of the trademarks, because we want to actually to protect our innovation, to protect our product, and then sometimes the purpose is to brand our product, and then get our product is actually that people know about our product. I think that most branded items have their own trademarks. Trademark
Right.
can be in the logos, trademark can be in the words, letters, or something like that. Okay, for example, Apple is a letters. Okay, and then there is some characteristics of the trademark as well. For example, that there is a word marks, which is example Apple that I mentioned just now.
I think what I find interesting is that you mentioned specifically about when you have IP, it's not only for you to protect yourself to just go on the defensive, but rather you mentioned it's about branding and actually promoting your product or your services as well. It's more like the offensive. So I think that's something good that you highlighted as well. So thank you for that. Okay, Ms. Roslyn, I think it's also time for you to introduce yourself, to also give a quick overview of history, what you've done at Meranti. I know you have like over 20 plus years of experience in the startup world. You were part of Magic as well. So please do share with us your experiences and what you've gone through and what you've seen in the IP space. We would love to know about that. And then maybe you can touch a little bit about how Meranti helps businesses with IP laws. Go ahead.
Sure, thank you. Assalamualaikum, and thank you, Nabil. Thank you, Prof, for your insight earlier. So I am currently with Meranti. Yeah, you are right, Nabil. Previously, it was Magic. I spent 7 years there, but prior to Magic, I had about more than 22 years of working experience, but mostly in the private and public sector. And doing in the space of business development and project management. I've seen the evolution of how businesses become from what they are to what they are now, and it's good that we have evolved into bringing the focus into being creative, being innovative. So yes, my experience was mostly about learning from entrepreneurs at my 7 years at Magic. And it is where the ecosystem of new enterprises or new teams of people who think a little bit different from the regular and wanting to solve problems out there, who become unknowingly at that point startup founders maybe. And there are so many of them out there, young Malaysians, very committed, very passionate about wanting to do what they do to solve problems out there. So I was very happy to see that this ecosystem came out to become. So I am here how to help innovators and entrepreneurs. And of course, when you deal with research and development, something they spend a lot of time on, IP is very important. I mean, a lot of them come to us and say, how do I know that this idea is not going to be stolen? Because we do share a lot, right? When we have boot camps or workshops, we ask them, tell us about what you do, what your idea is about. And we saw some resistance there because many have the concern that this idea will be hijacked. It happens a lot. And especially when you have worked such a long time in research or scientific research, developing something to become the end product, and having that stolen. So it's not a place, there's a lot of concern there. And IP is one of the solutions here.
Thank you, Prof. Rusmawati and Ms. Roslyn, for the introduction. We are really privileged to have your experience in the space, because I think from the introduction itself, both of you are very passionate to share about your experiences and knowledge, right? So it's quite good because now we understand that about IP, there's a lot of challenges, right? So first and foremost is, what kind of IP should we go into? Is it like copyright and things like that? So I think let's dive a bit deeper in terms of the questions of, okay, maybe this question can be answered by Prof first, or maybe Roslyn. I think the first question would be, what are the different types of intellectual property rights, and how do they actually differ from each other in a brief sense, like to make it as simple as possible, like for someone like me, macam I tak pernah tahu about IP, what are the differences, right? Macam tu.
In the IP, actually we have like, for example, copyright. Okay, copyright is actually that grants protections to the original literary. Actually that it can be literary works, it can be artistic work, and creative works, for example, such as books, music, movies, all right?
Right. Okay.
And software as well. That is under the copyright. Okay. For example, what is the difference between books and then modules? There is some modules actually that they have a ISBN, which is, if in the university we make a separate entity dealing with that, like for the copyrights, it is actually that protected by TTO office.
Okay.
Means that modules, manuals like that is all copyrighted. And copyrights is actually that is this actually that not protect the ideas. It just protect the literary work. So that means that copyright is not prevent the ideas. It just prevent what is in the paper, like a literary work inside that. For example, here I cannot copy word by word from that module. But I understand from what you teach me from that module, I produce another things. For example, a product, you cannot prevent that one. So the ideas you cannot prevent, but the pattern you can prevent the ideas. So how actually that the pattern must have novelty and inventive step. Normally that we call that is a technologies lah, or always that we call the technologies, and then we can protect the pattern actually in the two ways. One is actually that the process of that pattern, as I mentioned before, and then another one is actually that the product of that pattern. IP, which is first is copyright, second is patent. The third one I can explain is actually that trademarks. Trademark is very simple and many in our life. For example, in our webinar now, the words Meranti there is a trademark.
I see.
Okay, so what is the definition of the trademark? It can be symbols, It can be
Okay.
name, it can be words, or which is actually that the purpose of that trademarks is actually that to distinguish goods and services in the marketplace. So in
Okay.
SMEs, for example, when you want to start the business, you want people know your products, you need to do trademarks. Another type of IP is actually that trade secret. Okay,
Okay.
trade secrets is actually that, to give example, KFC, Nabil.
Okay.
See, the recipes is a trade
Mm-hmm.
secret, but
Okay.
the word KFC there is a
Uh-huh.
trademark.
All right.
So in one product, sometimes you can have two IPs. And
Okay.
we have another type is actually that industrial design. Industrial design. Yeah, industrial design normally that this actually that protect a visual design or appearance in the industrial objects or products, for example, that, and then they more focus on the artistic aspect, for example.
Okay.
At the university, normally that we got lots of these types of IP from the faculties of Seni Bina,
Okay.
because they actually that have lots of their design there. But yeah, and then when they go to industry, sometimes industry like their design and so on, so they can protect that one.
Okay, there's a lot of different types and different
Yeah.
businesses, as you mentioned, have different IPs, right?
Yeah.
And I think if
The,
I'm
the,
not
the,
mistaken,
the, the purposes is different. For example, that sometimes I'm as a inventor, actually that I just do trade secrets. For example, especially that related to my recipes and so on, which is
okay,
actually very hard for me to get to the pattern because of sometimes pattern need the inventive step. I give you the example of you want to cook for example that gulai lemak, for example, gulai lemak.
okay,
That is
okay,
very biasa punya gulai lemak.
yes,
So that is common. You cannot protect that always under the pattern or pattern, for example, but you can protect under the secret recipe if your gulai lemak cannot basi, cannot rotten in 3 days, for example. Because of you
okay,
ingredient, which is the secret ingredients, is only you know, or maybe 2% or 3% know. So
okay,
without another types of technology lah kan, maksudnya tak teknologi lain, so that you can prevent that recipes in under the trade secrets.
I think what Miss Roslyn mentioned earlier during our start of the webinar that you mentioned, some startups, they struggle to find, do they pattern certain processes or do they then use trade secrets? Do you happen to go to some experiences where they don't know which one they need to pick?
Yes, that's very common. Of course, being not an expert in that kind. And we do normally we have that inquiries. So this is where in the programs that we deliver, we make that the distinction between what is and what is not. And
Right.
I think another aspect of intellectual property that if you want to protect it, it needs to also be novel. I mean, in the space where we're coming from, the space of innovation, that something needs to be better than it was before. And say maybe the same like tadi Prof cakap kan, the kuah kari cannot be tak boleh basi in what 3 weeks. Yeah. So that's it, because the novelty is that people when they travel, they sometimes not just people who travel yang ada places to makan, restaurants, but people who like hike mountains or like go on food or adventure. They need at some point after months of traveling, they want a proper food, and instead of having young powder eating that, what it can come, what the novelty is that it comes in a form of a typical gulai that has been you can still eat it in within 3 months or 3 weeks. So that we always focus on the aspect of innovation. How can whatever you're working on improve something that was before, either improve the product or it improves the way people do things. and not only making it better, or maybe cutting costs and reducing wastage.
And then
Yeah.
sometimes it is serve the environmental friendly as well.
Yes, yes.
And then some innovations like at the university, we really encourage that when we can use waste, for example, use waste to produce a healthy from the waste to the healthy product. Because of Nabil asking me how the inventor want to identify, right? First, the inventor need to understand the definitions of the infringement and then counterfeit. Counterfeit, for example, like they produce the similar one but fake. For example, it's very easy, but actually that you need to identify what is the fake. I give the example of the branded handbag. So you need to identify either infringement or counterfeit. So if after you identify actually that you can review the intellectual property documentations. It is very important.
Okay.
And this is actually the challenge for the entrepreneur and challenge for the researcher as well, because of we actually that not really familiar with the legal terms.
Okay. So basically what you're saying is for someone to understand whether they're doing an infringement or a counterfeiting activities, at the end of the day, they still have to refer back to someone who has those experiences lah, right?
And then the next step is actually that examine the suspect activities as well. Because sometimes you claim that they are they actually that counterfeit you, but actually that not. And then you claim they are actually that they using your products on, but actually that sometimes that's not counterfeit as well.
Thank you, Prof. So next question would be, this is for Miss Roslyn. So when you see in your experience, right, when innovators actually do happen to violate the IP, either their competitors did that to them or they unknowingly did violate someone else's punya IP, what's the process like when they actually do violate those things? Because it's good that Prof actually mentioned a few things already about some of the questions that we'll be covering later about what kind of legal actions and things like that. So maybe we want to understand, like in your lens, what's the process like when someone actually goes violate this IP protection?
Okay, thanks, Nabil. So it's fundamentally the same process, because one, when you want to make a claim, it has to come justified with research, correct? Whether or not, we don't know if that person unknowingly or intentionally stealing it. That's one, that's infringement. And as opposed to counterfeiting, memang you tahu it's not Gucci, right? But you produce one exactly looking like it, so that people who cannot afford the real Gucci can also, take photos with a cheaper version of it. So what Meranti does is, apart from this education, if they do need to take action on this, there are various ways which I think would be similarly to what Prof will be sharing. It's either you then start with a cease or desist letter. You can say, hey, stop, you cannot do this anymore. You are stealing my idea. So don't go and do it until we solve this. And then there will be the negotiation and the settlement of it. And if that still doesn't work, then you do need to make a little more discovery. The discovery process need to go on to make sure that what he's saying is true, or even if people are accusing you of infringement, even you do need to build up a lot of your case against them to say that you're not intentionally stealing it. And then if still that cannot be resolved, it might need, then the next step would be, well, let's go to court and then do a trial on this and see what the decision is from the judge.
Because we're talking about legal actions and all that, right? So what I'm hearing is, at the end of the day, you do have resources as an innovator of a business owner. If you're near or you have access to academia or like a UPM, you definitely go there. But if you're in a hub like Meranti, you should definitely find someone like Miss Roslyn, for example, right? So you need to always go back and forth, because what I'm hearing is also all these situations are very different from each other. At the end of the day, there's no right or wrong answer, correct?
it's a he says she says thing. You see, the research needs to be done. You do need to get your facts together before you even claim that someone's stealing or people claiming you are infringing. So as you develop that innovation, it's advisable to people in the researchers in the universities, like Prof mentioned tadi. Please go and approach your technology transfer office. That's the first step, I suppose, before you go in any further in developing the innovation, or you think you need to protect this, the ideas coming from you, the way it's being designed is coming from your intellectual. Also discuss this with them, because the officers or the faculty who are in the technology transfer office, sometimes it's called various name lah, innovation and center or research management center.
Like UPM, we call Putra Science Park.
Yeah. So different things, they are the
names.
Different names, the private
Why?
unit.
Because ada trademark IP ke?
Yeah, ada. Putra Science Park already trademark and they got IP there.
So maybe if we try to make it a bit more simple, for example, the counterfeiting, as Roslyn mentioned earlier, macam kalau Gucci yang fake and Gucci tak fake kan, macam mana nak tengok kan? So what would you recommend that macam, if let's say because right now as we see, there's a lot of local entrepreneurs designing handbags and shoes and trying to fight bigger brands, for example, but all sudden tiba-tiba you cakap there's a company in Mexico producing it and selling it, just changing certain things, and they actually make more money because they can sell it to the US, for example. So how can they combat this counterfeiting punya activity? Do they add holograms, or do they add RFID tags, or what because you mentioned about security feature kan, macam if you add something, then you can be like, I'm different technically, right? So how can we make sure that we can macam not 100% be safe, but rather macam the percentage of us being safe is a bit higher lah.
For the entrepreneur, actually, that they can create, like what was said just now, security label, for example, and then security seals, and then sometimes tips to identify about their products. And then Nabil, we need to bear in mind that actually that they can't is actually that produce the similar like ours, because they don't know about the formulas and so on, and then the quality. Why we actually that sometimes in some brands or some foods and so on, they sell because of the quality, because of they want to save the environment, for example like that.
Right.
So because of that, sometimes actually that they have a certain quality. So never actually that for the consumer, never take buy the goods like counterfeit goods, for example, for the baby foods, which is harm your body and so on. There is some like lots of imitations, right? Again, that is because of the original one is expensive, and then we need to think that why it's expensive, because of sometimes it's actually that produce that one is actually that not cheap, and then sometimes when we go to designers handbag, it is not lasting. You can wear 1 or 2 months actually that, and then after that you can notice, oh, this is not original. This is actually the fake and so on. But for the case of the LV, the example that I want to share just now, actually that there is the lawsuit on the counterfeit sales in US. So how they trace from because of now we have internet, people actually that sell in the online and so on. They can trace using AI. They can trace actually that from the words, from the meanings and so on, so that all the sellers cannot say LV. You need to say VL, for example, like that. I mean that certain, certain what we call words, which is not represent LV. For the consumer, of course, that that goods is fake. Why you want to buy the fake goods? But maybe, as Roslyn said, that because of the price is really, really expensive, so that people try to find the alternative ways and so on. People want to get an easy business, and then want to get easy profit.
Understood.
So that they will keep actually that steal and so on, and then you cannot actually that stop people from doing that.
Understand. But then okay, then if that's the case, it's hard to do. It's about he says this and he says that and all that. How or what was the go-to law enforcement agency? Let's say if someone were to go through this in Malaysia, siapa dia patut pergi first to get help in this?
Yeah, there is that my IPO, kan? That one
Hmm.
would be the first place you might
Yeah,
want.
my FEO, yeah.
And
Okay.
then there are quite a number of patent agents out there. In the private one, the companies. One known is that we constantly work with is KASS, KASS, and there are also legal startup lawyers who
Hmm.
helps
Mm.
us entrepreneurs in this sense. We do have several of them who we work or we engage for our programs, such as the accelerators or the bootcamp. The bootcamps. These are the ecosystem partners that we work with. For those in the program, this is where they can get advice on. For those
Okay.
out there who may not be know where to go on this, you could reach out to. You can try reaching out to us, to get directed to the right place to go.
Okay.
And if you happen to be in a university, that's the first place you would go, to the tech transfer office.
We all can agree the fact that this is going to be a tough road for anyone. It's a hard road ahead. So
But it's
there
not the
will be
easiest worth doing again.
yes, yes.
It's good.
That quote really makes a lot of sense. There's nothing worth doing that is easy at the
Yeah.
end of the day, right? So there's so many challenges trying to do IP to register and things like that. Like for example, number one, both of you mentioned similar things, complexity and cost, right? Time consuming, competing priorities, and also like cross borders issues as well. What are the three main challenges that you know, like, okay, I know it's so hard to deal with, but I know these are the main three challenges that I see entrepreneurs or innovators go through on a daily basis?
First thing first, if you don't know anything, go find out about it.
Okay,
And
good one.
we are in the age of technology. Information is abundant. There is information everywhere. And again, if you can't find them there is specifically on IP, you can reach out to in the universities, your tech transfer office or my IPO. And second one is know what you want. Which part should which one should I protect first? Because you can't be doing everything at the same time. You may not have the resources or the time to do it. Which one is the most critical part of it? Decide which one is the one you want to go with first. Then third one, get it done. That's it. There's no more thinking about it, not doing it then. So get it done. Whatever it is, the first step, get it done.
I like to echo what you said. I think we all have a role to play at the end of the
Yes,
day. If it's
definitely.
not businesses, individuals, we have a role to play,
Yes.
not just for ourselves, for our family, but country and the planet as a whole.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. So we are actually at the end of our conversation together. So what I would like to do is to summarize some of the main points that we've discussed. Number one, I would say, as my understanding as well, IP or property intellectual is basically legal protection for you, right? Betul tak, Prof? That's what you mentioned. It's not only for our protection in terms of defensive side for the business to protect from people stealing from us, but also it's a way for us to actually go on the offensive and do more branding and more marketing so that we can get more money. And I think that's a bonus point as well. Prof mentioned earlier, property is also considered as an asset. You can actually make money from it. And there's a few examples that you've shown us earlier in the call as well. And at the same time, I would say there's a lot of things that people would lose if they do not have their IP rights sorted. The road is hard, it's tough, but it's needed to do. And I like to quote Miss Roslyn on that, there are three things that you need to do, right? Do your research, do your homework. Number two is know what you want. And then last but not least, just go and do it. Thank you once again to
Thanks
Prof.
so much, Prof. Thanks, Nabil.
Thank you to
Thank you
Roslyn
a
for
lot.
the
Thank you
insightful
as well.
discussion. Thank you.
All right.
So with
All
that,
right.
I am Nabil Jalil. Take care, everyone, and see you again.